Oh, hey guys, here we go. We're going to work on, we already did the third grade mid-year check. Now we're going to go back and do the baseline at the beginning. So this is actually going to be easier than what we did on Friday. So I want you guys to read these questions as we go through this, try to get your answer, and then unpause and get the answer from me. So pause the video now, read number one, and then start it up when you have your answer. Okay, so for number one, Marta was comparing temperature. Right when you see temperature, you should immediately go to thermometer. And I know that seems easy, but remember, we're seeing how the questions are getting harder and harder. We're in the third grade questions now. Starting this week, we're going to get into the fourth grade questions. Okay, do number two now. Pause the video. Okay, so number two, remember there was a cup of hot water. It loses energy as it sits on the counter. The best way, make sure you read the best way. That means these are all ways, right? Of course, I don't think really any of them are. You got to use that thermometer again, right, to measure the change in temperature. You got to know what those tools are for this test. All right, do number three. Okay, so whenever you see the word friction, that's when things like rub against each other, right? The rubbing of things. We did that. Remember, we did that already. We go like this, and we already had that question before. And when you go like this, it doesn't get sticky, doesn't get wet, doesn't get cold. Your hands get warmer, right? So usually when you hear the word friction, think about things rubbing together. Usually they get warmer. Okay, do number four. Okay, number four was a little tricky, and I had to eliminate ones that didn't make sense to me. So you put gas in your car, and when you're driving, your engine gets really hot, right? Sometimes you see the smoke. If you touch an engine, even like an hour after your car's off, the engine is still very, very hot. So what kind of energy is the gasoline releasing? Well, it's definitely not wind or magnets. Those don't make sense, right? I was down to the two. Now, cars do have electricity. That was the tricky part for me. So we did have to go look at the answer to this one. Third grade science question. And I had to go look up the answer. It is heat energy, right? Because the gas burns. The heat is what fuels the car. Now, that fuel is what makes the electricity go. That one was still a little confusing to me, but just know that it is heat. Okay, do number five. Okay, number five. If you don't know that the sun is a star, you need to write yourself a Post-it right now. Memorize that, because you're going to get a lot of questions on your test about the sun, and you got to know it's a star, and you got to know it's the biggest, and you got to know it's the closest to Earth. You got to know it warms the Earth, supplies us with energy. I mean, you got to know a lot about the sun, okay? We need to know the sun for this test, okay? All right, do number six. Pause it. Okay, so number six, a snake. His teacher says it's a vertebrate. Right when you see the word vertebrate, you got to start thinking about a backbone, right? You just have to know that. Like, there's no scholars. The snake was like a vertebrate, just like him. I mean, obviously, the snake doesn't have the same body shape or the number of limbs or the same kind of skin. So I guess if you weren't sure, you know, you could eliminate the one. So that's the kind of thing when you're not sure what vertebrate means. See what I just did there? We're comparing a kid, Daniel, and a snake. Well, if you're not sure what vertebrate means, you might not know its backbone, and that's okay. But remember, we say make your best guess. Your best guess was a snake and a boy don't have the same body shape. A snake and a boy don't have the same number of limbs, like arms and legs. And a snake and a boy don't have the same kind of skin. So that only leaves one choice. When you think backbone, I don't think of a snake as having a backbone, but there is a bone in there. All right, do number seven. We talked about this yesterday, right? Where the plants, you have to just know this. The plants use the water, air, and sunlight to change into food. The food is created in the leaf. Remember, we talked about that yesterday? And that was one that I said I wasn't sure about, remember? Now I'm sure, because we checked it, right? You know, the roots is what brings the water in. The stem transports it around. The flower does a lot of stuff. But it's the leaf, the leaves is where the food is made. Okay, do a number 8. So whenever they start talking about the color of a lizard and the texture similar to the leaves of an animal, it's always going to be so that they look like the leaves so that they can hide from things that are trying to eat it, right? So the answer to this one is A, it makes it harder for predators to find it. It wouldn't make them, and when you read these choices, you'll start to see, and as the questions get harder this week and into next week, you got to pay attention. It makes it harder for the lizard to find food. Well, why would that be? Why? If anything, the things they eat might not see them and it would make it easier. It makes it easier for the lizard to stay warm. How would looking like a leaf make it warm? It makes it possible for the lizard to make its own food. Lizards don't make their own food, so they don't make sense, right? Okay, do number 9. Okay, you've got to know what mammals do, right? Because mammals and lizards, it wants us to know how they're different. You got to pay attention to different, right? We both have lungs. They both have some kind of skin on the outside of their body, right? They both have backbones and bones. You just have to know that mammals are the only ones that produce their own milk to feed their young. You just got to know that one. That's a characteristic of the mammals. All right, do number 10. Okay, so Keisha uses clay balls to size of the planets in the solar. So she made like an activity and she like showed us what the planets, the size is based on the balls, different size. So that's using a model, right? That one should be pretty easy for you. If she's using clay balls, a chart is on paper, and drawing a conclusion and develop an hypothesis is a guess, and a conclusion happens at the end. So if she uses the clay balls to show the sizes, she's modeling that for us, right? Okay, make sure you're writing down these answers. I didn't say that at the beginning. Hopefully you guys have been paying attention. You have to go back and watch all these. Okay. All right, pause and do number 11. Okay, number 11 is just using this. Don't get confused because, look, they gave you Phillips measurement up here, right? But this wants us to say, what's the length when Stanley measured it? Well, this is Stanley doing it, and he's right here at 45. So your answer is 45, but they put that in there to trick you, because if you just read this, you'll think, oh, he redid it. It was 41, and you'll get it wrong. So make sure you read if you don't read this question right here, you could get that one wrong. All right, pause me and do number 12. Okay, number 12 tries to trick you because we want to know how the amount of the rain affects the mosquitoes. Well, by measuring the rainfall, yes, you would do that. By sampling the mosquitoes, yes, you would do that. So you could very quickly and easily pick either one of those and think you're right. They're both technically right answers. But C is much better because you got to do both, right? You have to do both. But if you guys are rushing and not paying attention, look, best collect the data. These two are both ways to do it. You need the best way, and the best way is to do both, right? And counting the number of people with mosquito bites, that makes no sense. If you pick D, you're not paying attention. Okay, pause me and do number 13. Okay, so number 13, you have to figure out what this table says, right? So down here is the 1 tablespoon of salt, 2, 3, 4 tablespoons of salt. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. When I first looked at this, I thought, okay, this is going up, up. It's got to be 110 because it goes up 2 every time, right? It goes up. This went up 2. This went from 102 to 104. That's 2. This went to 106. That's 2. This went to 108. That's 2. So I said, oh, this would go up to 110. And I literally circled this when I went through this. But then I looked and it said 6 tablespoons of salt. Well, this one is only 4. This one's 3. So 5 would be the one that would go up to 110. 6 would be out here and would go up to 112. So I'm not going to lie to you, I actually got that one wrong the first time. When I put it in, it said I got number 13 wrong. And you want to know why? It's because I didn't read the question. I didn't pay attention to what was in the chart. So hopefully that didn't happen to you. All right, let's keep it going. Number 14. Pause me and read it and get your answer. Okay, so if you put an ice cube in the cup and the temperature goes down and then you make an inference is a guess, right? What will happen if you repeat it? Well, the same exact thing's going to happen, right? Every time you put an ice cube in a hot drink, it's going to go down. All right, number 15, pause me and do it. Okay, which sequence shows the states of water from the lowest to highest temperatures? Well, we know ice is solid and cold, so that's got to be the coldest. So you can immediately take out B and C because it doesn't have ice first. And then you have to have the liquid water, and water vapor is what happens to liquid water when you heat it up, right? So 15 has got to be A because this one's got it backwards. All right, do number 16, pause me. So number 16 is another one of these things that you need to know all your stuff about the sun, right? And don't, if you miss this word right here, you will mess up badly. So which one of these is false about the sun is A. It is not mostly made up of solids. It's a lot of gases and heats and different kinds of things. But it is the largest object in our solar system. It is the source of our energy, and it is the star at the center of our solar system. You got to know there's going to be 5 questions about the sun on this. And most of the time, if you know these 3 right here, will help you a lot. All right, do number 17. I think Marley answered this one yesterday. When you get that bottle and you go outside, condensation is what builds up, like on the grass and on your drink when you leave it out of the refrigerator and it's humid outside. So you've just got to know what condensation is, right? Now, even if you aren't sure, you could look at the other ones and see how they don't make sense. Like melting. Melting says because the air in the room is warmer than the bottle. Well, melting, your drink bottle of water, unless it was frozen, it doesn't say it's frozen. Your bottle of water wouldn't melt and then get on the outside of the bottle, would it? Like, even if it was frozen and the water melted inside, it wouldn't get outside of the bottle unless there was condensation, right? And then freezing is the exact opposite. And evaporation would be if the water in the bottle disappears, and that's not happening either, right? So try to remember that condensation is when things are wet for no reason, usually. All right, do number 18. Okay, I want you guys to do some research because we want to use these mirrors. We talked about this before, and this is one I have to get better with. When you want light to reflect, remember we talked about, we already had a question just like this where it said mirror, right? So I hope you guys all can come right back to reflecting the light off a mirror because that's the way. Now, light into the mirror wouldn't reflect it, and changing the color of the light in the mirror, that doesn't make sense. And remember, we talked about refraction earlier this year as a 3rd grade skill. And refraction is when, like, if I put this pencil in a cup of water and you looked and it made it look like the pencil was broken. It's like it almost like looks like, so refraction and reflecting, like they're kind of sort of, they both start with R's and E's and F's. And they both kind of have to do with like reflections and how things look. But just know if you want the light to reflect straight back, it's got to be a mirror, right? Refraction is more of like a tricking your eye kind of thing. But look up both those words, the difference between reflect and refract, because that will help you a lot on the test. And I have to do a little more on refraction because I think I'm saying that right, but you guys can double check me. All right, number 19, pause me and do it. Okay, so the dog was laying in the sun, then he went and laid in the shade, so his fur is going to be cooler, right? That's A. It wouldn't get warmer. It wouldn't feel the same, and rougher doesn't even make sense. All right, do number 20. So as it gets darker and he's noticing these lights, what are the lights he's seeing? I mean, I don't think it's the stars, right? Don't get like crazy with this comets and galaxies and moons because like all that stuff's up there. Remember, he's noticing many different lights. There's bajillions of stars. Comets aren't shooting through the sky that you can see very often. Galaxies are very, very far away. You don't see those. And we can basically see one moon. So don't let these words things you think you see in the sky and in your movies and video games and different kinds of things confuse you. All right, pause and do number 21. So this is another one about the sun, right? The sun is the one star you can see during the day, and it's always going to be because it's the closest star to the earth. That's why we can see it. You just have to know the sun is so important on this test. All right, do number 22. Okay, so overcoming gravity. If you're playing basketball, you're running and moving, you stay to the ground gravity, right? Hitting a baseball with a bat, you're trying to hit the ball before it falls to the ground, basically, right? Jumping rope, you jump, you don't stay up in the air forever. So playing freeze tag, gravity can't really affect me, right? So your answer would be D. All right, do number 23. We did this one last week, right? You need sunlight. It needs sunlight to make the food. So your answer would be C. I mean, if it sees it raining outside, is the plant really going to lean towards the window because it sees it raining outside? Does it want the fresh air? I mean, plants aren't like humans that think those things, right? All right, number 24, do it. Number 24's got that spores word in it again. That I didn't really get good at spores before I did this, so hopefully that's not it. Okay, so I hope you guys see that plant B has flowers and plant A does not have flowers. That's the one that makes sense, C. Because both plants have roots for like A, and plant B gets its food from the ground. That's not true, right? The food comes from the leaves all the time, right? And remember the spores, that's like moss and different things that grow on it, and none of those plants have that. All right, number 25. Pause me and do it. Okay, so which one is not needed for plants to grow? They definitely need sun, they definitely need air, and they definitely need water. But some of them need heat, like palm trees where I'm from. Palm trees don't grow where my parents live because it's too cold. So they need heat. But then they have trees and stuff that can't live in the heat. So heat is not the prerequisite, but don't let heat fool you because you think, oh, it gets cold, it'll die. That is true. But it definitely, all of them need sunlight, all of them need the air, and all of them need water. So don't let that one trick you. Heat is something that could kill plants if it's too hot or too cold. There's a lot of plants that don't grow in certain areas. All right, last three. I'm going to leave them all posted up here. Why don't you pause me and do all three of these now, get your answers for 26, 27, and 28, and then we will go over them. Okay, so let's see. Number 26. Tony was studying the growth of flowers in his dad's garden. He wanted to show his classmates. So he wants to show them the different stages, right? They need to be able to see it. So if he writes a paragraph, they can't see it. They can see his words, but they can't see a visual of what's happening, right? Whenever you want to see something or see a visual, it's always creating a model, right? If he tells people what he saw, they can't really see it. It's just based on his words. And if he write a song, that's just a silly answer. All right, number 27, Mr. Washington was driving his family to the beach. The light from the sun was coming through. This happens to me all the time. His left arm, sometimes my left arm gets a big sunburn on it. My right arm has nothing when we're driving to Pennsylvania over the summer. His right arm was not in the sun at all. What can you infer? So I'm going to make a guess. So I'm going to guess that his left arm, because you drive, the driver sits this way. Left arm is by the window. So his left arm is in the sun, so it's going to get hot. And his right arm's in the car, so it's going to probably not be as hot. So let's take a look. Both of his arms feel cool. That's not going to be true because one of them's in the sun. Both of his arms feel warm. Well, one is not in the sun, so that's not going to be true. His left arm feels cooler. This one can trick you because you got to pay attention to the words and which arm is where, right? The left arm, let me make sure I'm not just making that up. Yeah, through the window onto his left arm. Okay, to make sure the person wasn't sitting backwards in the car. So the left arm will feel warmer than his right arm. So your answer will be D. And then number 28, Tamisha was sitting on the slide. What will pull her down the slide? That is our good old, magnets or the wind do not pull her down. Now she'll get friction going down the slide on the slide, right? but what's pulling her down to the ground is gravity. Okay, guys, I hope you wrote down those answers, numbered your paper 1 to 28, and wrote down all those answers. You can go over to Canvas and submit those answers, and you were done with science for the day. We'll start on 4th grade practice tomorrow.